All right, everyone, welcome to another deep dive with us.
I'm thrilled to be here.
Today, we're going deep into the historical backdrop of India's constitution.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter if you're studying for the UPSC exam or just someone who wants to know how India's political system works.
Yeah.
This episode is for you because we're not just listing dates and laws. We're going to explore how centuries of events shaped India's constitution.
Exactly.
Think Polity 101, but more exciting.
Way more interesting than your average textbook, that's for sure.
So this document is basically the guide to run a whole country, right?
Exactly. And like any good instruction manual,
Yeah.
you need to know how it was built first.
Right. So where do we even begin with something so big?
You won't believe this, but our story starts with a trading company.
Okay.
Picture this. The year is 1600. Queen Elizabeth I grants a charter to the East India Company.
Okay.
Their mission was trade.
Right.
Fast forward to 1765, and this company is getting Diwani rights over revenue and civil justice,
Hold on.
over Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa.
Wait, a company meant for trading ends up ruling parts of India.
How did that happen?
Yeah. How?
It's a wild story.
Okay.
The company's power grew slowly. They took advantage of political problems and turned different groups against each other.
Oh, wow.
They started as merchants, but by the mid-1700s, they were collecting taxes, running courts, and even had their own army.
Wow. They went from selling spices to basically being the government.
Exactly. And that shift
Wow.
was a turning point, and the British Crown started paying attention.
Yeah.
They realized this company was getting too powerful.
They couldn't just let them do whatever they wanted, right?
Of course not.
So did they bring in some rules?
You got it. The British Parliament stepped in with a series of laws
Okay.
to try and control
Okay.
and eventually dismantle the company's power.
Makes sense.
First, we had the Regulating Act of 1773.
Okay. The Regulating Act.
Think of it as Parliament's first try
Okay.
to rein in the East India Company.
So what did it actually do?
Well, it established the Governor-General of Bengal and his council.
Okay.
This was a big deal because it set the stage for a central administration in India.
Right. Which hadn't really happened before.
Not really.
That's where a more organized British administration starts.
It does.
What else did this act do?
Well, it set up the Supreme Court at Calcutta,
Oh, well.
which was a huge step in
Yeah.
creating a separate court system
Yeah.
that was not controlled by the company.
Right.
And to top it off, it tried to deal with all the corruption.
Yeah, there must have been a lot of that going on.
Oh, yeah, by making private trade and bribery illegal for company employees.
Wow. So it's all about trying to get this company-turned government under control.
Yep.
I bet the company wasn't happy about that.
You are right about that.
Yeah.
There was a lot of pushback, but the Crown was determined
Yeah.
to take charge.
Right.
And that leads us to the next step in this legal battle, Pitt's India Act of 1784.
Okay, so what's the big change with this one? Well, rules.
This one is all about separating the company's business goals from its political power.
Right.
They created the Board of Control to oversee the political stuff,
Okay.
while the Court of Directors still managed the business side.
Okay.
It was called double government.
Double government.
Yeah.
That sounds complicated. Why would they do that?
It was a tricky situation.
Right.
On one hand, the Crown wanted control over how India was governed.
Of course.
But on the other hand, they couldn't completely ignore the company's money-making activities.
Right, because that was a big source of income.
Exactly, especially for the British Treasury.
Right.
So this double government was trying to balance those two things.
So political control versus making money.
Exactly.
But it seems like the crown is slowly taking over.
You are absolutely right.
Okay.
And with every new law, the East India Company's power weakened.
Right.
This was a slow process,
Yeah.
not a sudden takeover.
So what's next in this slow move towards the British Raj?
Well, things really changed with the Charter Act of 1833.
Okay. 1833.
This is a big step towards centralization. All right.
The Governor-General of India was established.
Okay.
And he had power over all British territories in India.
Wow.
The company completely loses its commercial privileges
Oh, wow.
and just becomes an administrative body.
So they're basically demoted from spice traders to bureaucrats.
You could say that.
That's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to make things worse, the act says all the company's territories were now held in trust for the British Crown.
Yeah.
So they were running India for the Crown,
Wow.
not for their own profit.
So the company is out of the trading game and basically a puppet of the Crown.
Yes.
This is starting to look like the British Raj we know.
You're getting it.
Yeah.
And as the company gets weaker, the crown gets stronger.
Right.
But it wasn't all smooth sailing.
I bet it wasn't.
There was growing unrest in India.
Yeah, people must have been unhappy.
They resented this foreign power controlling their lives.
Yeah, so this unrest, what happened? Did it just disappear or did it turn into something bigger?
Oh, it definitely didn't just disappear.
Oh, actually, things were about to explode, but that, my friend, is a story for part 2 of our deep dive.
Okay, cliffhanger.
Yes.
Listeners, stick with us as we continue to explore how India went from being ruled by a company to the democracy it is today.
Absolutely. Welcome back to our deep dive into the history behind India's constitution.
Last time we talked about the British Crown taking more and more control over India.
Yeah.
And the East India Company wasn't too happy about it.
No, they weren't.
They went from big shot traders to just bureaucrats in a few decades.
That's right.
You also mentioned some tension brewing among Indians.
Yes.
What happened next?
Did things calm down or did it get worse?
I have a feeling it didn't just fizzle out.
You're right, it didn't.
Okay.
Things were about to boil over.
Okay.
In 1857, there was a huge uprising.
Wow, a full-blown revolt.
Some call it the Sepoy Mutiny, others call it the First War of Indian Independence.
Wow, that's a big jump from just being unhappy. What caused it?
It was a few things: resentment towards British policies, economic exploitation, and religious tensions. Okay. But the thing that really set it off was a controversial new rifle cartridge.
What was wrong with it?
It was greased with animal fat, rumored to be cow and pig fat.
Oh no, that's a problem.
Yes.
Hindus see cows as sacred and Muslims can't eat pork.
Exactly. It was a recipe for disaster.
I can see why that would cause a problem.
For the sepoys, the Indian soldiers in the British Army,
Right.
touching these cartridges went against their religion.
So this whole cartridge thing was really a symbol of deeper problems with British rule.
Absolutely. It was the last straw.
Okay.
The mutiny spread quickly across northern India.
Wow.
Both sepoys and civilians joined the fight against the British.
This must have been a big shock to the British Empire.
It was.
How did they react to this rebellion?
At first, they were totally caught off guard.
Yeah.
It took them more than a year to put down the rebellion,
Oh, wow.
and it cost them a lot, lives lost, resources drained,
Yeah.
and it hurt their image of being unbeatable.
I'm sure that changed how they ruled India after that. Did they ease up or did they just clamp down harder?
Well, they definitely learned a tough lesson from the 1857 uprising.
Yeah.
They realized they couldn't rule India just by force.
Okay.
They shifted to a more direct and centralized kind of control.
So that's the start of the British Raj. What did that look like in terms of laws and administration?
The 1857 revolt marked the end of the East India Company's rule
Okay.
and the beginning of the British Raj.
Wait.
The Government of India Act of 1858 officially transferred power from the company to the British Crown.
Okay.
The Viceroy of India, representing the monarch,
Okay.
became the head honcho.
So no more messing around. The crown was in charge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This act was a turning point.
Right.
British India shifted from indirect company rule to direct rule under the crown.
Okay. So what changed in how India was governed?
Well, first off, they created the Secretary of State for India,
Oh.
a big position in the British cabinet,
Okay.
responsible for everything about India. They also set up the Council of India, an advisory group to help the Secretary of State.
Okay.
This basically meant the British Parliament was directly responsible for governing India.
Okay. So more direct control, more centralized authority.
Yeah.
What about the Indians themselves? Were they just left out of all this?
Not entirely. Remember, the British learned something important in 1857.
What was that?
Ruling India by force alone wasn't going to work.
Okay.
They needed to find a way to make the Indian population happier,
Okay.
to give them a feeling of involvement, even if it was mostly symbolic.
So a bit of a carrot and a stick approach?
Exactly.
Control them but make them think they had a say?
Yes.
How did that play out in real policies?
That's where the policy of association comes in.
Okay, association.
It was a way to get Indians involved in the administration.
But I'm guessing in a very limited way.
Yes, in a controlled way.
Okay, so it was a step towards inclusivity, but probably with a lot of strings attached.
That's right.
So how did they try to put this association policy into action?
First, they passed the Indian Councils Act of 1861.
Okay, what did that do?
This act allowed the Viceroy to appoint Indians as non-official members of his expanded legislative council.
So Indians could be part of the council.
Yes, but they weren't official members.
Okay.
It wasn't a lot, but it was a symbolic gesture,
Okay.
a recognition that Indians should have some voice in their government.
Okay. Baby steps towards representation.
Yeah.
Did these appointed members have any real power, or was it just for show?
Their powers were limited.
Okay.
They could share their opinions and participate in discussions,
Right.
but the final